How are you today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, I guess. I don't know. I'm not feeling well. I don't.
A little
Not
down
a
on the
weird
weather, huh?
feeling. I feel like I'm hungover, but I didn't even drink last night, so I don't know how I could be hungover.
Mm.
But yeah. So what's going on?
Well, I peruse YouTube a little bit, and I was listening to Boebert talk about her impeachment of Joe Biden, which I don't think will really get enough traction to do anything.
Talking about
And
who?
Representative Boebert from Colorado.
Dude, this guy is such a friggin' scumbag, man. He really is.
I,
And here's the thing. It's like he could have faded into the sunset 4 years ago or 3 years ago and just retired. But he just thought, you know what? I've been here for so long. It's my turn. I got all this garbage in my background. Maybe it'll come out. Maybe it won't. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care if it's going to rip the country apart, because it's hubris and it's ego. And it's really embarrassing. And what's even more embarrassing is, listen, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. If
yeah,
I was a Democrat, I would be like, you got to be kidding with this Schiff guy. For 4 years, it's like, okay, you got this proof that Trump colluded with Russia. Let's see it. You've told me for 4 years. Let's see it.
let's show them us. Show it.
Then he goes on CNN, says, oh, I've seen all this proof that Trump colluded with Russia. Then he goes into the Senate under oath, says, no, I didn't see any. Then when he's back on CNN the next day, he's like, oh, yeah, I saw this proof. He's like a pathological liar, man.
Well, no, he's selling the talking points. He's a good salesman because he looks like a Q-tip. I mean, if you look at Schiff, he just looks like he's a shifty, not a nice person. And you know what really hurts my feelings is like I like Ro Khanna. That guy's a pretty sharp dude. But he came out and he said that this was going to make Adam Schiff be able to slip into Dianne Feinstein's seat with no problem. And you know something? If the Democrats vote lockstep with each other all the time, there's really no party. There's really no choice in that party. There's really no voice in that party because you got one head person, which is not the president. Obviously, it's like you say, Susan Rice and Barack. They're calling the shots on Joey because Joey honestly hasn't been really right since Corn Pop put him down. And we just have a mess right now. And until we decide to get this country right, until the people all come together and stop letting themselves be divided, we're going to go down, Mark. I think I don't know that we have a choice.
Don't hold your breath, dude, because I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Look at this. Speaking of, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Hunter Biden kicked out of $10,000 sex club for grabbing women's asses. There's the headline for you.
That's what I mean. I mean, there's nothing. Where do you find what?
New York Post, bro. Best paper there is. The president's troubled son is really a bad guy. Of course, he's a bad guy. He shacks up with his dead brother's wife. Doesn't pay his kids to. I love this, right? He goes to court to say he doesn't have enough money to pay for his love, and he takes a private jet to get there.
And the Secret Service rides him up there in the armored limousines. I mean, just ridiculous.
Now, why does he have Secret Service protection?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard him say, well, he's the president's son. They don't want him to be kidnapped. But by God, he's in enough bad situations that he could die at any moment. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like he's looking out for his own well-being.
He was reported belligerent when being kicked out of the party. Let's see. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can look at him in that picture right now there with those two women. He's mad as hell right there. Look at him. He's just like these jackasses. I mean, look at him. He's so, I don't know. He's just gotten away with the long stuff for a long time. That is your ultimate white privilege right there, Mark.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, dude. It's look at this. What the hell is this? God.
And it's not even white privilege. It's more just privilege. It's more just you don't mind. And this shit, who goes around taking naked photos of themselves and posting them?
This almost looks like it's a guy over here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he plays on both sides of the team.
I'm sure. I mean, I mean, who knows?
I just don't understand why every American isn't absolutely outraged. And now did you see the text which is allegedly his, where he's like,
yeah, man, I'm sitting here talking to my dad, Zang. You better get your shit together, or whatever it said, something to that effect. I mean, just a strong arm, basically. I mean, I don't know how you don't think that we're just. I mean, they're mafia, and that's all there are. They're just a small time mafia group that's gotten in charge of the damn White House.
Well, bro, I know a lot about our country's history because I really
Yes.
like to read a lot.
That's the
And
point
you
of our
got other
channel.
crooked presidents. You got like Warren Harding was kind of crooked. There was some shady stuff going on in the Grant administration, but I don't think Grant knew about it. But that was the era of, when they're going into the West and there's all these Indian bureaus and everything, and people are just stealing money from the Indian bureaus. But there is just nothing like this. I mean, if 1/10 of what they're alleging is true, this is far and away the most crooked administration in history.
Why are they doing that and showing people how these people died?
Because it sells. That's
That's
why.
horrible, man.
Well, I guess the good thing is they died
Yeah, I
instantaneously,
mean,
so it's
yeah,
not like they had to
yeah.
suffer, all in 30 milliseconds. My friend who's a scuba diver and a pilot, and he told me that if you're in a submarine and it's deep and there's like a little pinprick, the water will come in so fast that it would cause a sonic boom.
Yeah.
And so that would kind of just knock everyone
Well,
out.
every 14 feet is an atmosphere down there. So like when you're scuba diving, you have to actually go down and adjust the air in your ears as you go down. You have to expel air because you're going in you're pressurizing your lungs. So when you go lower, your lungs actually shrink. And then when you come up, they expand. It's wild.
Do you scuba
Oh
dive?
yeah, I have for since my whole entire life. They taught it when I was in high school. We had oceanography and uh oceanography program. We actually set off artificial reefs off of the Swanee and Steinhatchee in the Gulf of Mexico. It was pretty wild, pretty cool little thing to do when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've never done that, but I would really like to at some point.
Well, this place I'm at now is absolutely amazing. Actually, Florida, period. We have so many springs and rivers that are just clear that you can kind of they call it drift diving, where you get in a river and you've just got your air tank on and you're just kind of floating underneath the water and you're floating down the river. We have one called the Ishnatuckney that's really kind of cool that you can do that in, and it's a probably 7 or 8 miles long that people will get in and float down the river from point to point, and then you get in a truck and come back around to where your truck is and pick up your truck, and
How
but it's
deep
pretty
is it?
cool. About 15 feet in some spots, 12 in others, shallower in others, to where there's little spots. It's just a river, but it's clear because it's all spring fed.
So you don't need to worry about getting the bends.
Oh no, 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 no. You only get the bends if you stay under 30 feet for. I mean, you'd have to go down 30 feet or deeper and stay there for hours. I mean, you can stay at 30 feet for, I don't even know the time now, but I believe it's like 212 minutes. You can stay at 30 feet. You might even be able to stay a little longer before you have to decompress for only like a minute. It's when you go deep, deep, like 100 feet or more, and you stay down longer than your. I mean, they have a gauge and they have a slide that tells you what you can do because it's been tested over time, Jacques Cousteau. And so you follow that slide rule and you just do it to the letter, and you're safe every time you do it. If you deep dive, I don't deep dive anymore. I did when I was a kid, but I don't now.
Yeah, I had a friend whose father started a company where they tested the masks, and actually Jacques Cousteau was going to buy it from him, but I think they didn't come to terms, and he ended up adapting it so it would be so they could use it to test firefighter masks. So like
Oh
his
wow.
technology is in like every fire department in the country pretty much. So real rich kids that never needed to work type of a thing. But anyway,
You know what though? If they're smart and they have an inventive spirit, then those are the type of people that really change society. Is the ones that have all this free time. I mean, you got to do something with it when you're rich. Might as well do something good.
yeah, he was Mr. Bird. He was a really cool guy. All right, anyway, so what's going on here today? It looks like oil is off its lows, but I would say for those of you, and hello there, Mag Daily, thank you for coming every day. Um, I would say I would be getting ready to watch this thing uh, potentially reverse here. I mean, maybe it goes down a little bit farther, but I think there's going to be a play here. Now, look, you notice how we get down here. Oh, who's that? Diana. Hello. Um, we get down here and then we rally and then we get down here. This is a pretty interesting thing to look at here. This is what we call a reversal day, right? Now, in the market, if things are going down, right, you could argue that the bears are in charge I mean, you could even argue the bulls are in charge because they're the ones who are buying at lower prices. But just to keep it easy, let's just say the bears are in charge. And when we're going up, the bulls are in charge. And when we get a change of that leadership from bears to bulls or bulls to bears, if we're at a top, the action manifests itself on a chart as what we call a reversal pattern. So when we look at these reversal patterns, whether it's the head and shoulders or the V top or the round top, we're not looking at astrology here. People think it's like, oh, you're a chart guy, you're an astrologer, you're a tea leaf reader. No. And the reason why people say that is because so many technical analysts don't know what they're doing. But if you think about things as supply and demand, you don't really have to remember all the patterns. So here we have the red team is in charge, right? And then look at what happens on this particular day here. So this is May 4th. And remember, on a red day, the opening price is the top of the rectangle. The low price is the bottom of the rectangle. The opening is the top of the rectangle. The closing is the bottom of the rectangle. And on a blue day, it's an up day. So the open is the bottom and the close is the top. So now look what happened on this particular day here. This is what we call a reversal day. This is when the trend changes in one day. Sometimes trends change over a while, and that shows up on a chart as kind of like what we would call a rounded top or a rounded bottom. Sometimes the change takes place over a couple days. That shows up as what we would call a V top or a V bottom. Sometimes we get the change in one day, and that shows up as something that looks like this. It's a reversal day. Now, remember, the blue price is the opening price. So if you were to look at this in the morning of May 4th, you would have said, oh, it's going to be another down day. It's going to be another red day because the opening price here is lower than the closing price here. And as a matter of fact, during the day, look at how much lower it got. So this looked like it was like a bloodbath. We got all the way down to here. But by the end of the day, what had happened? The bulls came in and overpowered the sellers and pushed us right back up. And we ended up closing at a higher price than the open. So just think about this for the action, right? The red team is in charge. The red team's really kicking ass. Think about it as like a football team, right? Moving the ball down the field here. Then they finally get down to where it looks like they're going to get in the end zone. The red team looks like they're finally going to get in the end zone, but the blue team makes a stand and, goal line stand and turns it around and pushes it all the way back. So it's not important to say, all right, well, this is, a sledgehammer pattern or this is a reversal day. What I want people to understand is you have to look at this through the prism of what does it tell us about supply and demand. And this is telling us that within one day, the picture changed from where there was too much supply to where there was not enough supply. In other words, when markets are going lower, there's more supply than there is demand, or more sellers than there are buyers. When markets are going up, there's more buyers or more demand than there is sellers.
That's crazy too, because the length of that wick, you would think, my God, this thing's going to just plummet right off, because it had broken support to the downside when it made the bottom of that wick and then just ripped back $4.5, $6. That's a crazy day.
I would suspect that, a lot of commodities traders are technical traders and momentum traders, meaning that they're doing what we're doing here. They're looking at charts. They're not really paying attention to fundamentals. So there was a good chance that when this support here broke, remember, support is a large group of buyers. So when the support breaks or we get below it, it tells us that those buyers are out of the market. So anytime you pull demand out of a market, it sets the stage for the price to go lower. So you probably had a lot of people jumping on board here, trying to ride this down. And then eventually the sellers just kind of ran out of their, they finished their orders, they ran out of the supply, and then the buyers took it all the way back. So this is our classic reversal day here. And anyway, going back here to oil, I think if we're getting back down here around 66.80, I don't want to be too precise, but down another dollar or two, there's a good chance we get a bounce. Now, how can you play that if you're not an oil trader? Because I presume most people listening to me are not trading futures, but we can go look for exposure in the equity markets. One thing you can look at is this ETF, USO, which is the United States Oil Fund. So it's designed to track oil. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of, see how the charts look similar? But there's a lot of gaps in this chart here. The reason why we see that is because oil trades 24 hours a day around the world. whereas
Right.
this only trades during trading hours from 9:30 to 4. So that's why you see all these gaps. So it's not like your traditional gap where it's a breakaway gap or an exhaustion gap. So I wouldn't worry about the gaps on this chart. It's just a function of the way it's not trading at the same time as oil is. But if oil starts to reverse, what I would say is you watch the oil chart, and if you want to get exposure to it, here's one way you can do it is right over here with this USO if you're a retail trader. So, you could buy your options on it. You could just buy it outright. Some people also trade some of these energy-based ETFs because they follow oil pretty well. Like here's the XOP Standard and Oil, or sorry, the S&P Oil and Gas ETF. You can see that's pretty similar as well. Then a lot of people get exposure to oil just by going into ExxonMobil. Oops.
My first trade was USO.
Did you make money on it?
Oh yeah, I got it at 20 and sold it at 40.
Yeah, here's ExxonMobil. When you're trading these energy stocks, it's important to, well, I shouldn't just say energy. When you're trading a commodity-based stock, it's a little bit of a different animal than a regular stock, than say like a tech stock. All right. So if you're trading a commodities-based company, you need to pay attention to the commodity, and it's pretty simple. Think about it. ExxonMobil, most of its assets are in oil, right? It's probably got these big,
Right.
huge tanks of oil wherever their centers are or their plants are. And if the price of oil goes up, well, the price of their assets go up and the company becomes more valuable. So this is another way to get exposure to oil if you don't want to buy the ETF or if you don't trade futures. We could look at this ETF here, XLE. This is the energy sector, but this includes natural gas as well. So it's not going to be, actually, that doesn't look right. Let's see here.
That looks like that's rolled over.
Yeah, now this is what we want to look at here. So this also kind of follows it. Now notice how clear the levels are here. And I know I talk about it a lot, but if you want to trade correctly or you want to make money, you really need to know where these important price levels are. For some reason, some price levels are more important than others, and a lot of times we don't know why, but we don't need to know why. This here is 77. We get to 77 and we rally. We get to 77 and we rally. We get to 77 and we rally. It's a good chance that this happens again. We get to 77 and we rally. Why is it 77 and not 76 or 78 or 79? That I don't know. But you don't need to be a chart guru or a former hedge fund trader. And I'm really sick of hearing about former hedge fund traders. Speaking as someone who actually was a former hedge fund trader, it's like, all right, enough already. I get it. You used to trade for some hedge fund. Big friggin' deal. There's a lot of hedge funds that suck, and I've met a lot of traders who traded for hedge funds that I wouldn't listen to. But anyway, going back.
Can I ask a question, real question, and it would actually apply to this chart? Do you see there where the 77 is? You have your lines, your level set on those two red candles, where you have your arrow here on support, and then see how it lines up with two red candles there as it goes through here.
And there.
Yep, there and there. Do you see that happening when the stock is on a move, on a downward trend, so that the levels line up with red candles more than they do with blue candles, and then on the way up, does it the opposite?
No, I just find the precise level here, which is 77. Because
have you ever noticed that? Because I kind of have an idea that is what happens. Is that something that is logical that could happen?
Yeah, I guess so, because people like to buy at nice round levels. So on this particular day, the market's selling off and people say to themselves, all right, well, hey, man, if this gets to 77, I'm going to buy it. No one says if it gets to 77.04 or if it gets to 76.93. People like to think in nice round numbers. So even in the institutional world, people just think in round numbers. So what I would do is, if you want
to pick this up and put this to your portfolio, you don't want to go at that round level. You want to maybe put it 705 or 7705 or 7715 and just accept the stock if you want it.
Yeah. You don't want to. I've seen a lot of people miss out on a lot of big profits over the years because they got too cute. And they got too cute with the price. They were like, well, it's at 77.05. I'm going to wait till it's at 77. Then 3 weeks later, it's at 82, and they missed it. When you go in to buy something or sell something, for that matter, you get in line. So if there are other people that showed up that placed their orders before you that say, I want to buy a 77, you're going to get in line behind them. So theoretically, it could get to 77 and maybe only 1,000 shares trades, and then it takes
Right.
off. So even though you had a 77 bid out there, you didn't get filled because someone was in front of you. So I would put my order, if I'm buying a little bit above support, like you said, maybe 77.10. And if I was selling, I would put my order a little bit below resistance. And the important thing is, let me true this up. This is actually 82.20 to get really precise.
Yeah, we like precise. Us retail folks.
Yeah, but we can't be too precise.
No, I know.
This is, it's like they say, like almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Well,
That's true.
It's the same thing with trading. It's not a science. Well, for some people it's a science, but for other people it's an art. And my experience has been that the best traders look at it as an art. Now, when I say science, I'll just kind of give an example here. Like, now we're in this whole artificial intelligence craze. Well, people seem to forget 5 years ago, it was the same thing. All people talked about was artificial intelligence. I think probably the crowning moment that, at least that I remember, is watching Monday Night Football. And they were like, oh, okay, here's our artificial intelligence simulator about what the next trade is, or the next play is going to be. Now, these AI funds at the time, meaning mutual or, hedge funds or investment funds that were going to manage their portfolio with AI, had a pretty easy time raising money. It's very, very hard to raise money on Wall Street. That's like one of the hardest things there is to do, because it's a chicken and an egg, right? To raise money, you need to have a track record, pretty much, right? To have a track record, you need to manage money. So it's a very hard thing to break into, because if you don't have a track record, it's going to be a hard time getting money,
Yep.
And if you don't have money, you're going to have a hard time getting a track record. So anyway, that being said, about 5 years ago, anything that had the name AI on it was able to raise money. Now, these funds' performance has been terrible. All right, they've been way, way, way behind the S&P 500. Now, why is that? Well, AI is based on statistics and probability, and statistics and probability assume that people are rational, and as we know, they are not rational. So the AI funds, or the science funds, I should say, science, look at this stuff through the prism of, oh, this is a chess game, right? But it's not a chess game, because in chess, the rules are always the same. The king always moves the same way. The bishop always moves the same way. Whenever you play chess, the rules are always going to be the same. This is more akin to a poker game, in the sense that, there are rules and there are strategies, but you're playing poker, and the person on the other side of the table who you're playing against, well, guess what? They're a human being. At least you would like to think they're a human being. So they're a human being, and they have emotions. So what works today may not work tomorrow, and so forth and so on. So the people that do the quantitative trading or the AI trading, my experience has been that some of them, they have some short-term success, but eventually what they're looking at, they're not flexible enough. Like the people that look at this as an art, they can change as things change. The people that build these complex models, well, once they're built, I can't speak totally about it. Maybe there are
They
some out
become
there that
stuck
are
in that
designed
model.
to change as time goes on, but a lot of times you get these quantitative models, and that's it. You're like kind of locked in, and the
Yep.
market evolves, but the models don't. So
That's the same thing with business. Business is always evolving and it's always fluid. So you just have to stay on top of the things, and especially in the industries that you're in, you stay on top of those things, and it really can help guide you how you produce your business and how you move forward with it.
probably the best thing, or the most closest, if that's even a phrase, the most close to the infallible trading systems were when high frequency trading first came out about 20 years ago. And there's a really cool book. It's called Dark Pools by a guy named Scott Peterson or Patterson, which I recommend to people to read if you really want to learn about the history. But when they first came up with this high frequency trading, there were some funds that were doing it that were making so much money that they literally would stop trading during the day because they didn't want to attract attention. But like anything in any industry, or on Wall Street, when something is really successful, it invites competition. And once you get competition coming in, well, all of a sudden it's not as easy anymore. And the reason why a high frequency fund had an advantage over, say, a buy and hold strategy is if you buy and hold something, well, you don't know for 2 to 5 years whether it's going to work out or not. The high frequency
Right.
funds, like they literally could tweak everything every 10 minutes or every half an hour. Oh, if the last half an hour would have been better if we tweaked this, so let's do it. Now it's at the point where these high frequency funds, a lot of them lose money, but they make money on something that we call maker taker, which I think is very controversial, and the SEC should be looking at it. Now, I don't know if you remember, but about 10 years ago, this guy named Michael Lewis wrote this book called Flash Boys, which I didn't read, but I think the whole premise of it is stupid. It's like, okay, well, high frequency funds are making money. Oh, well, they're front running people's orders. They're doing this, they're doing that. That's just jealousy. Wall Street is about making money. And since Wall Street started, or since financial markets have started, people try to get an edge, right? So, hey, you guys came up with a high frequency fund. Great. Who are high frequency funds making money for? Well, their clients. Who are their clients? I don't know, pension plans. Who's in a pension plan? The little guy. So this whole argument of, high frequency funds are ripping people off is really just a fallacy. And maker taker means this, right? If you create liquidity on an exchange, you get paid a little bit of a fee. If you take liquidity, you have to pay a fee. Now, there's about 60 or 70 exchanges out there. If you want to buy something, say you want to buy XLE and it's at 77.36, well, you have two options. You can go take an offer, meaning you go pay whatever the offer price is, and that means you're taking liquidity out of the market, so you'd have to pay a fee. Or you can go post a bid, which is you post your bid and you wait for the buyers or wait for the sellers to come to you. In that case, you're making liquidity, so you get a little bit of a rebate. Now, something like this is so liquid, trades 20 million shares a day, that it might be offered on one exchange at 38 cents, and it might be bid for on another. It could be offered on an exchange at 38 cents, and you just go put a bid on another exchange at 38 cents, and they come together, and you have created liquidity. So some of these high frequency funds actually lose money on their returns, but at the end of the day, they make money because they're getting these rebates. Now, I think the issue here is that it's the exchanges that people should be complaining about, because the exchanges are treating their clients differently. But, anytime people make a lot of money, other people get jealous. Like people always used to complain about the specialists, who are the guys that used to trade on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And we saw the whole thing with GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond. Everyone blamed, it's the hedge funds, or, it's the market makers. Good traders take responsibility for their actions, and they examine themselves and they say, what did I do wrong? Bad traders blame someone else. The market maker ripped me. The hedge fund ripped me. I was a market maker for 2 years, and I can guarantee you that market makers do not go to work every day thinking, how can I rip the little guy? And that actually brings me up to this here, which is something I wanted to point out, is this Bed Bath & Beyond. And if you remember carefully, last August, there was this whole thing. There was this whole thing going around. Oh, God, 8 cents a share. Somebody's getting to the point where maybe I'll buy it. Let me see how much money I got.
Man, you can't even get a cup of coffee with that joint now. That's bad.
Now, if you remember, last August, right in here, there was all these stories going around in the Reddit community, how there was going to be this gamma squeeze, and Bed Bath & Beyond was going to go to $70 or $80 a share. That's because Ryan Cohen, who was one of these activist investors, went out and he bought these call options, supposedly, that were like $70 or $80 strike prices. So the story that went around was, these market makers that sold these calls, the $80 strike price, they're going to have to go and buy shares to cover to hedge their position. And that's going to drive the stock up to $70 or $80. Well, a couple of things. Okay. First of all, Why wouldn't a money market maker just buy other options to hedge, right? They don't need to buy the stock. So that was a
Yeah.
myth. The other thing is that if everyone is saying something, it's what we call a crowded trade, and there's a really good chance it's going to go the other way. So don't believe the hype. If you're in the Reddit community and you see all these quote unquote experts are talking about, oh, here comes the gamma squeeze, blah, 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 blah. Well, they're probably wrong. So anyway, they go in there and they buy the stock, and guess what? Where did it hit resistance? Right at a level that was resistance before. Why would it hit resistance at a level that was resistance before? Well, there are people who bought it at 30 here and bought it at 30 here who tell themselves, man, I'm losing money. I want to get out. I made a mistake, but I'm just going to hold on to this. And if it gets back to my price, I'm going to sell it. So it comes back up, and all of a sudden you got these remorseful buyers placing their sell orders, and we put a top on it at 30. So, moral to the story, regardless of what the people are saying, people are wrong. Sometimes they're right, but they're wrong. But the market is never wrong. So, I mean, if you were a savvy trader, this would have been pretty easy trade to make money on, because once all this stories started going around, you could have bought. Once we got up to a former resistance level, you would have sold, and then the thing just collapsed. So, I mean, that was like the big thing. Like all the Reddit community, everyone was like an expert on hedge funds, and I even remember talking to people about it, and they were like telling me like I'm wrong. That's like, okay, well, what do I know? I only did it for 20 some odd years.
Well, in the longer that I've done this, and with the longer that I've sat here through these lessons with you and stuff, the more I can look at that chart and realize just how much money these people made off of this stock crumbling. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
To the short side, oh my God, the money made off of Bed Bath and Beyond.
I mean, as trading goes, this is about as easy as it gets. It's just being on the other side of the big Reddit myth.
Man, I'm kind of excited for the next one to come around.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait, I guess, maybe for another bubble to form. Let's just take a look at GameStop while we're at it there. Yeah, this is another thing here, right? Where we can talk about for lack of a better term, the retail or the Reddit community. This stock seems to always overreact the wrong way whenever news comes out. Now, remember, the red candles are days where the close is lower than the open. I don't know what news came out here, but people jack this thing all the way up to here, and where did it close? All the way down here. Now, this comes out back here that they're getting rid of the CEO, and I think they're bringing in some activist investors. And I said, man, that's good news. Why is it going to be down so much? I mean, this thing closed at 24 and it opened the next day close to 20. And it's like, that's good news. You got an incompetent manager and you're getting rid of him. I mean, how is that a bad thing?
Right.
And sure enough, the stock opened way down here because the Reddit crowd was overreacting or overdoing it on the wrong side, like they typically do. And it turns out that this would have been a great place to buy. Now, I probably would have sold it up here, even though it went higher. I would have sold it when we got to this support/resistance level. But, I mean, whatever. In 3 days, that's a good trade. Just because I didn't get the exact top, I'm not going to worry, because no one can get the exact top. No one can get the exact bottom.
I just like seeing my account balance grow.
Exactly. The only people that, it's like, there's an old saying, right? The only people that can get the top and the bottom are people who will lie. So.
Or Biden.
Yeah.
Or Biden, or a shifty shift.
Oh, God, that guy's an absolute disgrace.
Oh, he's going to be the senator for California. Watch.
It's like they're pathological liars. Like
well, they all line up to lie with each other. It just doesn't make any sense, man.
Like Biden was on one of the Sunday shows a few weeks ago saying how, when he was in high school, which was, I mean, the guy's 80 years old, so we're talking, 65 years ago. When he was in high school, he said he saw this gay couple, two gay men, like holding hands or whatever. And his father said to him, and these are Biden's words, "You see that, Joey? That's love. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If people are in love, they should be able to get married." So he said he had this epiphany. Oh, I was all for gay marriage, right? But then he becomes a senator and he spends 50 years speaking out against gay marriage. So,
yes,
like, is he just pulling stuff out of the air? Does he honestly believe that? I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's really
It's all about the polarization of the country, man. It's about getting your voter base fired up and your voter base just completely in a froth. I mean, you see these people with this Trump derangement syndrome. My God, you've seen some pictures of people on YouTube with frothing at the mouth because of this guy that was supposedly the worst person on the history of the planet, got elected, and Hillary didn't. When Hillary's killed at least half more people than influenza.
I don't know about that, but
I bet she has.
well, she's evil, but she's not stupid. We wouldn't have had the debacle in Afghanistan or energy policies that caused
Well,
war
we
and
had
famine if she was
Benghazi
in
because
office.
of her. Remember, we had Benghazi because of her, and then she sits up in front of a Senate committee and says, "Well, what difference does it make now?" Well, there's 4 dead people that should not have died, and all those people in Benghazi that had the problem that they had because of Hillary.
Well,
And
that
that's
was
just,
really coming from Obama because he wanted to maintain this narrative that, oh, we got bin Laden and terrorism isn't a problem anymore. But it's like, oh, we have a spontaneous eruption that just happens to occur on 9/11, you know?
I don't think they got it. I don't think they have Osama bin Laden. I honestly don't think they killed him. We never saw a body. They dumped him in the middle of the ocean. That's a completely against all Muslim tradition. And Barack's a Muslim. So why is he going to defame the tradition
Well, he's
of
an
the Muslim
atheist.
faith?
I don't,
Well, he might be, but he was born and raised a Muslim. And so therefore, why is he going to defame his faith and do that to the leader of this group? I'm sorry. I honestly don't think they got him. I think the man died of kidney failure or something probably by now, but I don't think they killed him.
well, I don't know about that, but there are a couple things I would say is that the whole story that we were given is kind of, once again, it's on the surface just so obviously questionable. So it's like, all right. So, and I don't care. I mean, I would have killed bin Laden myself. I mean,
Oh
I had a
yeah,
lot of friends that
absolutely.
died on 9/11. So I
Absolutely.
really don't care. But here's the couple things. One is they say when the SEALs went into the room, he started reaching for his gun, and that's when they plugged him. Well, let me ask you a question. He didn't hear the helicopter crash in the backyard, you know?
Or the people rummaging through your
I
house.
mean, if a helicopter crashes in your backyard, I think you would hear it, and I think that's when you get your gun. The other thing
Listen,
is that
when I'm hearing the chopper mark, I'm breaking camp. I'm out of here. You're not going to catch me.
well, in my opinion, he was captured by the Pakistanis, and they had held him for years. And then when we found out that the Pakistanis are holding him, that's when they decided to go and get him. But think about it. The guy was in a house which is right across the street from a Pakistani army base. We heard all
Right.
these stories about how he was going to be surrounded with all these bodyguards that had these orders to kill him if it looked like he was going to get captured, and it turns out he just had like 1 or 2 bodyguards with him, if even that. So I think that's the big story there is that um, that the Pakistanis had him and they didn't let us know. And then when we finally figured out, that's when they went in. Um,
So do you think like the whole thing behind that is just a story to make him a more prominent figure in the whole thing?
what do you mean?
I mean, I know that they say that he masterminded the whole thing, but if he was relegated to Pakistan and he was being controlled by the Pakistani government and in this compound next to the military base, I mean, so basically he was running all of his operations, if there were being operations masterminded by him out of Pakistan.
I don't think
With
he
the
was.
collusion of
I
the
don't think he
Pakistani government.
was running anything. I think they got him and they kept him there so they can keep control of him and maybe use him as a bargaining chip in the future. Um,
So then the narrative that we heard and all the secret papers and all that stuff is kind of just a narrative.
I mean that's kind of what I think. It's
I mean, that's logical.
and then there was the whole thing about like how Obama was so brave because he ordered the SEALs to go and get him and blah blah blah. Like, what's he gonna do? They're like, oh hey, we know where Bin Laden is. Like, oh well, let him go. Don't get him. Of course he's gonna go get him. And people talk
I
about
don't
how
know.
when the
Billy
Carter
let him go.
administration was in office, when they tried to rescue the hostages, the helicopters crashed. It was such an embarrassment and so forth. But when was Bin Laden? Like 2011, 2012? I don't even remember. People are so
Yeah.
desensitized that if these helicopters crashed and all these SEALs died going in there, it would have just come across the bottom of your screen. Helicopters crashed, 15 guys died, 30 guys died, and people wouldn't have given it a second thought. And which is a really bad place to be, but that's just how it
Kind of
is.
like that.
And so I think it was a no brainer. It's like, of course you're going to go in there and get him. You got nothing to lose, you know. And then of course Biden was the one guy who said we shouldn't go get him.
Well, that's because he was being paid by somebody already. He already had that one marked down. He was like, man, if I could just get Osama alone in a room, I can get me some money out of this cat.
And Obama's the one who said never underestimate Joe's ability to F stuff up, and we sure as hell see that now. There's one thing he was right about.
Honestly, I like Barack. I mean, I didn't vote for him because he kind of scared me with the whole air of superiority thing. I just don't. I don't think that anybody is any more impressive than anybody else. Some people produce and they are impressive, but some people are just people, And I don't like somebody to stand up there and tell me that, well, now they're not going to be suicide bombers anymore. They're going to be homicide bombers. Well, you're taking that from an act of heinous act of committing suicide and blowing a bunch of people up, and now you're just going out here bombing. When you change definitions and they go up there and they tell you to change the definitions of a word, they're messing with your mind. And I just didn't appreciate any of that with that whole administration. And so I changed my viewpoints. And I was a Democrat to begin with, then a Republican, and now I'm in the middle of a divorce from the Republicans and I'm becoming an independent.
Yeah. I mean, there's idiots on both sides, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think most people that are thinking people tend to be somewhat in the middle. But I don't know. I don't like Obama because I just think he's so arrogant. He's such a narcissist. He just thinks he's so much smarter than everyone else, and you can just tell.
I just don't understand why people have to talk down to you to think that they're drilling home this point, and it's really kind of I don't know. It's belittling people, and they do it all the time to the American people. And you know what? That's why I say every single person goes into that booth and has the same exact power as the person saying what they're saying. When you check that mark or however we do it now, or run it through Dominion or however we're doing it, all of that, your voice is your choice when you make that pick. And, everybody has the same exact title and credibility on that day.
Well, I think to me, I think Obama was a disappointment as president because I think the biggest problem that this country has is how messed up our healthcare system is. And, it's like someone who works for a company for 30 years and then gets laid off because the company gets taken over and they're, working in their backyard and they fall and break their leg and they don't have insurance, could go bankrupt. It's like, it just shouldn't happen. And when Obama came in, it's just like Clinton, only a Democrat could have reformed welfare. And that's what Clinton did. Well, only a Democrat could reform healthcare. And Obama came in and basically he ended up just selling out to the insurance companies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't have the right to insurance. You should have the right to healthcare. There should be like national clinics where if you got the flu, you could just go in and get some medicine. You don't have to pay for it. I mean, medicine has advanced so much over the last 50 years, but the system hasn't. Like in the old days, what would you go for a checkup for? The doctor would say, "How you feeling?" The doctor would give you his advice based on his experience or her advice based on her experience. Now you could just go get a blood test. And then, if you get a blood test, it's got all the things like, oh, this is high, this is low. You could just go to CVS and the pharmacist would be like, all right, here's the pills you need, But anyway.
Well, that's kind of laissez-faire way to do it. But yeah, I mean, you could do that with no problem. And you can probably live a long, healthy life.
And insurance companies are for-profit companies. So basically this idea of like, you have the right to health insurance is like someone saying someone has the right to make money off of your health. And I think that's morally wrong.
Well, in the insurance industry alone, they get along on small margins. It's just the volume and the length of an insurance company's life that that the money comes in and creates that makes it such a large entity. And when you go from them making 4% a year annually on average to making 12 to 15% on the health insurance side, they're not giving that back. And the Republicans and the Democrats are so cheaply bought, the politicians are, that you'll never get these insurance companies clawed back or this healthcare fixed because now they've got their fingers in it. They're not letting go of that 8%.
Yeah. Well, it's the only industry where, there's no price competition. You go in and the doctor says, hey, you need this. And you're not going to say, well, let me go get a second opinion and see if it's cheaper.
Right.
All right. Let me get a little behind here. So let me go quickly through the markets here.
Sorry, man.
No, that's right. So SPY's looking pretty weak in the pre-market, down about 76 basis points. And, again, it's this whole, this whole big tech trade, I think, is kind of unwinding. We saw a little bit of a rebound yesterday, but I don't think there's going to be follow through. And let's just see. So Tesla, which technically is really part of the consumer discretionary sector. So Tesla ran into this resistance. Now, why would there be resistance around here? Well, because there tends to be resistance at former support levels. There are people who bought here who tell themselves, man, I made a mistake. I'm going to get out, but I'm only going to do it if I can get out of break even. So they place their sell orders at the same level they bought at. So you can see that here, right? Support becomes resistance. Support becomes resistance. So if you're trading something and you're looking for a price target or you're looking for an entry point, so it's, in my opinion, a good idea to base your actions around where these price levels are. Had I bought in Tesla down here, I would have sold it around here because I know it's a former support level. Now, of course, it could always go higher, but this is a game of you're never going to be perfect. It's just about making money. So Tesla's giving back some of its gains from yesterday. Actually, let's see. So yesterday was up $5.15, and now it's down about $4.40. So it's pretty much giving back all of that. Let's look at Apple. And Apple is giving back some too here. So it's down about $1.50. So watch this 183 level. If this 183 level for Apple breaks, that's going to bring the whole market lower.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Amazon.
Mr. Softy.
All right. So Amazon, again, it's testing this support here, right? Support at a level that was resistance and support. Now, if this breaks this level here, at the same time Apple breaks its level, then you're going to get a pretty decent sell-off. And I don't know if it's going to happen today, but the Bank of England's raising rates. There's been this whole narrative that the market's been going higher based on this concept of, oh, the Fed's going to pause or take a break. Well, first of all, that doesn't mean they're stopping. It means they're just taking a break. Right. Yeah, the Bank of England raised by 50 basis points. So Amazon seems to be kind of holding up all right for now, at least. Let's look at Microsoft. And then I will show you what I think is probably the most important thing to watch in the market. So look at this. So Microsoft has given back all yesterday's gains, or pretty much most of them. So let's take a look at our financial sector. So I'm looking at the ETF here that tracks the financial sector, the Spider ETF. And wow, look at this. So this is yet another day of weakness. So we got up to a level that had been support. It converted into resistance. Then we have here what we could call a little bit of a false breakout, where it looks like it's going to break the resistance, but it doesn't. And a lot of times these false breakouts are in and of themselves good contrary signals. Something's going to get above resistance and it hangs out for a day or two, but then it comes right back. There tends to be some follow through. And of course, as we can see, that's the case here. So this is where we're trading in the pre-market down to here. So this is going to be another gap down. In other words, we closed here and we're going to open down here. And when things gap down, it tends to show really aggressive selling. Now, I think the most important thing to watch here is the banks. I personally don't think the banking crisis is over. I think we're going to see more. Ooh, look at that. Jeez. So this is an ETF that tracks the banking industry. KBE is the symbol. And I was saying this, right? If you recall back here, this is Silicon Valley blowing up and First Republic. And then there was all this talk about, oh, we're going to backstop this. We're going to have insurance for that. There's going to be we're going to bail out. We're going to backstop. Well, guess what? That's what people might have been saying, but was the sector saying that? Was the ETF saying that? No. I mean, it never came back. It never came back. And now we're getting some really aggressive selling. Looks like we're breaking this important 35 level, which I believe goes all the way back to here.
It does,
so
way
this
back.
Is, it was resistance back in November of 20. And once again, it's an example of market memory. But it looks this morning like look where we're trading, right at 35. So this I think is probably the number one thing to watch to get an idea of which way the broader market's going to go. If this holds, we'll probably get some sideways trading or maybe a little bit of a rebound. But if this breaks, I think that the whole market go lower, and especially if this breaks at the same time that Apple and Amazon break, then we're going to see a pretty decent sized sell off. And what can you do? Well, you can buy this inverse ETF if you think financials are going down. The symbol is FAZ, F-A-Z. Where's my FAZ? This is designed to go three times the amount, thrice the amount. You like that? Thrice the amount of the financial sector in the opposite way. So we'll see that this is going to be up big yesterday.
I was going to name my kid after me and then call him Trace because it was number third.
Yeah, so there's always ways to make money. If the market and I think that it's easier to make money in a down market, and that's because when markets go down, they go down faster than they go up usually. Like, remember, this is inverse here, so this is the broad market going down. Look how high how that rips, and that's because selling is driven by fear, and fear is a more powerful emotion than hope. Buying is driven by hope. Absolutely. So in general, markets tend to go down faster than they go up. So I tell people, don't be afraid of a bear market. I mean, we don't really want one, but we don't need to put our heads in the sand and hang out or just go to cash, because there are ways to make money when the market is going down. And all right, I got to wrap things up. We ran a little bit farther than I thought, but I got so intrigued with our Bin Laden conversation.
Sorry, I took you down that rabbit hole. Folks, listen, have a wonderful day and do something good for somebody. Kiss your mother.
All right, man. All right, I will see you at 11, dude. Talk to you then. Later.